This is Beach Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Hello, America, and welcome to the #1 radio station in all of Fort Myers Beach. Beach Talk Radio. Here are your hosts, Kim and Ed Ryan.
And a good Monday evening to everybody. Welcome to episode number 40 of Mondays with the Mayor, which is sponsored in part by our good friends at Starlight Electric. Locally family owned and operated since 2013. They're licensed in Florida since 2004. And both owners are involved in daily operations and lifelong Southwest Florida residents. And one is a new Fort Myers Beach resident. So give Starlight Electric a call or check them out online. Here's the number, 239-313-7122. 239-313-7122. And thank you to Starlight Electric for sponsoring Beach Talk Radio. And right fresh from his new garage location, there is the mayor of Fort Myers Beach, Mayor Dan Allers. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good.
So you guys had a really big, successful event last night. A nice big crowd, an awesome duo that performed, some dancing in the streets, and great weather. So kudos to you guys and the event last night in Bayside Park.
Yeah, it was a good turnout. It was the weather was. I think Councilor Veach said it best today. The weather was perfect. There was a nice breeze. It wasn't hot. There was no humidity. Everybody was having a good time. A lot of lawn chairs, a lot of dancing. Kids were having fun. It was nice to see, and Chasing Denver did a great job, as they always do.
Yeah. I mean, that really that Bayside Park is becoming the hot spot. I mean, I know that there's some discussions going on for more regular concerts, and that'll be great. That'll be great for that side of the beach there.
Yeah, I think Jeff is going to be meeting with the Chamber as well as Snug Harbor, Wahoo Willie's, to kind of come up with a plan, what makes sense, how often makes sense, that kind of stuff. But it's people. There were people from Bonita that came to watch. There was people from Estero that came. So I got to talk to quite a few people from different areas that came just specifically to sit at the park and enjoy it. So it was nice that it wasn't just Fort Myers Beach residents. People were coming from everywhere.
Yeah, and it's nice when you start off something like that to have a band with a huge following. I mean, they're so popular, which is a great way to start things off. Yeah,
very talented,
yes.
Super nice.
So, you want to start?
Well, you want me to just jump
Trying
right
to turn
in?
it so that it ain't so bright. If someone's saying the light, it's a reflection from the window. I'm trying. Let's see if I can turn this.
Yeah. Let's start off with the fire department discussion. You guys got right into it today and came up with a resolution, and you spoke to Representative Botana over the weekend. So kind of fill us in, if anyone didn't see the meeting today, where things are headed with that.
Essentially the message across the board has been people just want more data. They feel that there hasn't been enough information put out as to why this merger needs to happen now. I did talk, like you said, to Representative Botana. He called me on Friday about the same time. He talked to Chief Worth and let me know that this was coming and he's going to be proposing this. And we had a discussion about it. I think Chief Worth has said it could cost money. He says it's going to save money. So, without really knowing stuff like that, the council decided that we would stand alongside with the fire district and support them and trying to get the data, because everybody that I've talked to so far has said, if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it shows that it saves money and it doesn't cost lives or it doesn't cost response times and people get to keep their jobs, nobody's going to stand in the way. But I think until that information is available, people are going to be very hesitant about just letting something happen.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that the chief wants to get across too is that it didn't go in front of the voters. In addition to not having any information, that fire district's been there since 1949, and he kind of feels like it's just going around the voters to have something that passes so quickly without any input from the voters. So, do you have any?
Well, we've talked to people about no formal input, but getting their input out to the delegation so that So they do have at least that opportunity to not only send an email, but then also go to the meeting, right?
Yep, on the
Well,
30th.
well, there'll be, my understanding of how the process works is this is just a start. I mean, assume it goes to the delegation meeting and it makes it through the delegation meeting. It has many, many more committees to go through, many more input, many more strike throughs and underlines and changes that it'll go through committees before it even gets to a final vote. So it isn't an end all be all. We certainly hope that we can get things taken care of sooner than later, but it's by no means doesn't mean in the 30th, if it makes it through the delegation, that the fight is over for those that want more information. It is just the beginning, quite honestly.
Yeah, and
are they also merging the mosquito board? Has that come up?
I haven't seen any official.
what we
I haven't
heard.
seen any official bill for that, other than what that Representative Botana said to me on the phone. That was going to be part of something, but I haven't seen anything official.
I haven't seen anything official naming specifically the mosquito board, but you had the same conversation. It sounds like that I had. That is also one of the things that is being considered. So, but I have not seen any official bill saying the mosquito board yet.
Right. And just one last thing on that, your fire district on Fort Myers Beach meets on the 18th. So if residents wanted to go to that meeting, it's always open to the public. We're going to carry that live. If you want to share your thoughts about that, you can go to that. You can go to the one on the 30th. There is going to be public comment. And the process also includes that the bill could be pulled before the 30th, or it could die. It could not get enough votes to be moved on to Tallahassee. And we did speak to Senator Martin today, and the Senate plays a different role in that whole process, the local bill process, and that'll be in our newsletter tomorrow. I think the folks that are on the beach will be excited to hear what he had to say about the bill. So there's so many different things going on with a bill before it gets anywhere near the governor's desk.
Yeah, it's got a long way to go. And you've seen there's been a couple iterations of the bill so far. I saw another one today. So it's an evolving document. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit. Now that the comp plan, it's not going to be altered. What's the process for smaller businesses? What process will they have to go through? And how costly is that if they have to do the CPD process?
Danny, CPD process is anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000 is what I've been told.
Wow.
I looked through the fee schedule. I don't just give you some ideas. I got them down here, so I have them in front of me. But that was $6,000 to $10,000 roughly for the CPD. Development agreements are $5,000. Development orders are $3,000. Special exceptions are $3,800. A variance is $28,000. So it's not a cheap process for sure. And I think as we were discussing it in the joint meeting, that we got to look at ways. We have the power through policy to be able to adjust the fee schedule, but we didn't want to change the amount of density or intensity that was allowed. So we're still working through it. We heard about this development agreement that may be an easier path to go through. I know Becky's still working on that to find out what the procedure would be, because that's what's not in there. That's why it can't be used. So I know other people picked up on that, and they're looking at, is that a possible way for them to go through the process to make it easier? But the CPD process is probably going to be the easiest way to achieve what you want to achieve. But we still are going to work through land development code and try to adjust things. As you heard staff say, there's a lot of things in there over the last 28 years that have gotten, one section leads to another section, and it's going to take a really good cleanup to fix some of those things.
Did you hear after the meeting? Did you hear from developers directly that maybe they thought that, okay, the town is anti-development now?
They did. They were, and I touched a little bit on it at the end of the meeting for those that were still there. This is probably going to be redundant information, but essentially, they had steam coming out of their ears, which I fully expected. But in talking to them, I tried to let them know that what you heard and what you missed are two different things. And I encourage them all to go back and rewatch it now that the steam has settled coming out of the ears of them, to understand that we're not anti-development. We're not saying we want to be a shrimping village for the rest of our lives. That's quite opposite of what I think, at least I thought came out of that meeting, was that we wanted to secure our density and intensities, but it doesn't mean that there's not a path forward. Margaritaville proved that there's a path forward, And their biggest concern is that they didn't want to have to go through the 7 years that Margaritaville had to go through to achieve a project. And I totally understand that. And I don't think there's a will of the council that wants anybody to have to go through that. But you got to look at it in reality. Of those 7 years, how many were held up because of litigation and a worldwide pandemic and other things that caused this? If you look at just and I think Margaritaville will probably tell you at the beginning when they came forth with Grand Resorts that took up time. So all this time that you could take away from that, how long did the process really take? I don't know the exact number, but it was not 7 years. It wasn't 6 years, but it was a long time. What can we do to make changes to make that so that they don't have to go through that? I think being upfront with people when you talk to them about, we can relay what the community has a tolerance for. And what I've heard so far is the community has a tolerance. They understand buildings got to be more resilient. They got to be higher. They got to be stronger. There's maybe a willingness to look at adding a second floor or third floor, whatever, depending on if it makes sense in certain areas. But as I told the developers, so far, all the people that I have talked to, you got to have a starting point is what they kept saying. And you guys didn't give us a starting point. And my argument was, well, we didn't have a starting point from your end either. Everyone that I've talked to, with the exception of a couple, has come forward and said, basically, this is what we want, take it or leave it. And to me, if you're telling a community that has just lost everything that this is take this or leave it, that's not a starting point for the community either. You have to work somewhere. If you have to come, the last thing you want to do is go into a room where you're going to have 100% opposition. It just doesn't make sense to me. So let's be realistic about what you want, what you need. We'll be realistic about what the community has told us they want and need, what we think the community wants and needs, and then we can have a conversation. But some of these developments were just coming in my opinion, that were just so far one direction that it didn't create a starting point. But I think the message, if you go back and watch it again, you heard every single LPA member and every single council member say, and direct staff, we need to find a path to making sure that we're doing smart development in the right areas so that we can get back faster. And I think once we get the first development going, then you'll start to see things kind of spiral into getting done quicker and faster. But we had to set a tone, in my opinion. I think we did that. We didn't change anything.
Right.
The rules are still the rules. We can improve the process. We can try to get people moving started quicker. And that's where I think we're heading.
And was their expectation, the ones that there had steam coming out of their ears, was their expectation that you were going to change the comp plan in a certain way that would allow them to build faster or allow
more by right?
No,
Or
I think the biggest two things that people were hung up on were the calculations of base flood elevation, the FAR, to calculate that from above. But I think we covered that in the meeting. By doing that, you're automatically increasing the FAR just by allowing it to go up as opposed to not. And then the other one was the dwelling units per acre,
right?
Which we talked about. There was no way that I could figure out, and I try to pride myself on understanding math pretty well. And other people that I've talked to that have been in the business for a long time, and those that have been up on that dais before in the past, trying to figure, and even our staff, trying to figure out a number that works, that's relative to small businesses or small parcels of property, that doesn't overbuild on bigger properties or vice versa. One that doesn't make it too impossible for this. It's a number that I don't think exists, but they were upset that that number wasn't at least increased to make it easier. But again, I hate to keep using Margaritaville, but I think they had 84 rooms or something that they could get by right, and they're getting 254. And there was give and take there to get to what they got.
Right.
So it can be done. It's just a matter of you got to go through the process to do it. And again, where it makes sense, we're dealing with a whole different thing than what Margaritaville had to deal with. They were dealing with something where we still had the small villages, we still had the businesses in Times Square. We still had it. Now we're dealing with a whole different thing and a whole different set of rules that we all have to follow. So, the board has changed a little bit.
And the first thing out of the chute was that Moss Marine, Ben said he's pausing his project. Do you think that that's the end of that?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
That
I was
Moss
reading
Marine,
your comment.
sorry, that Ben at Moss Marina said he's pausing his project over there. Do you think that's the end of that, or he's going to?
I don't know. Ben was one of the people that I spoke to after the meeting, and we had a good probably hour-long conversation. I can't tell him to do anything one way or another. It's up to him. I asked him to go back and watch the meeting again with a different set of eyes to, and ears, and what you know now. And, like I said in the meeting, usually when you watch something, when you pick up on something that really goes against what you believe, you really focus on that. You don't listen to what everything else is going on. So I encourage them to go back and watch it, and whatever decision they make is what they make. We can't stop them one way or another. So I don't know if he's done that. I haven't had a chance to talk with him since our last talk, but that's kind of where it's at with that.
And it seemed like a lot of people were saying, if they scaled that down a little bit, it probably would be better. And it did seem like Ben was like, this is what I'm proposing, and this is what I'm proposing. And maybe that's why he's pausing it.
Maybe I can't speak for Ben. I guess you could reach out and ask him where he's at. But
yeah.
Well, I think,
I think, and I told him the same thing that I think we can all agree. Everyone I've talked to has liked the concept, has liked the idea, but they feel it was just too much. And what's too much? That's the conversations that you have to have. But at the point, what they're gonna come back with, or if they're gonna come back with it, it's kind of up to them.
I guess I'm a little surprised because, before when people were talking about, well, the parcels that have already been sold, you kept hearing those developers are smart people. They're not going to make this huge investment if they don't think they can make it work with the way things are. So I guess it's surprising if any of them were, felt jilted a little bit with this comp plan thing. Cause I thought the writing was on the wall that people did not want changes.
It was pretty clear. Yeah.
So
even you said that last week about people making the investments. They know what they're getting into. They saw what they were getting into when they purchased the property.
And that was the message that I tried to relate to anyone that I spoke to that was upset about it, that we didn't change anything from what it was before. We just held the line of what we feel is fair. And we're not closing the door on discussions. I think everybody will agree that this council is very much about development. Let's get this stuff building. Doesn't mean we want to give everything away by right either, or we don't want to put something in a place that doesn't fit. But we're certainly open to hearing proposals. It just the whole take it or leave it thing. The community has no tolerance for that at all. Especially as like I said, after they've lost everything. There's no willingness for that take it or leave it attitude, because they don't have anything. The community doesn't have anything.
Yeah, I think it will be. I can see the big development. They can do what they need to do, but for the smaller mom and pop places, that the expense of having to build up and the size of some of the lots does seem like that's really going to be a challenge for everybody to work together to make it as feasible as possible for folks who will find themselves in that situation.
I'm not going to sit here and lie. It's going to be very difficult for some small property owners. It's just going to be difficult. And what meets one person A or person B's pro forma for money that they need to make off it, it might not be a path to be able to build back what makes sense for you. And that's unfortunate. Nobody's happy about it, especially myself. But this storm did something that we never thought we'd have to go through. And unfortunately, there's going to be some decisions that have to be made that not every single person is going to be able to recover from. And it's unfortunate, but you have to try to do what is in the best interest of the community, what the community wants. But the reality is not every single property owner is going to get back exactly what they need to meet their pro forma. It's just an impossibility.
And the Neptune has officially filed its paperwork with the town. The application is in, and that building, I think we've had this discussion before, that building as the way it's proposed right now does not fit. Something needs to, I guess now it's a negotiation, right? They're in the CPD process. They have to have enough public benefit in order for the LPA and the town council to allow what they're proposing right there. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. All I've seen is renderings. So just looking at the renderings, it doesn't look like it fits in the decisions that we made, but haven't seen any data, haven't seen any information on it. So it's hard to say how tall is it? How many rooms is it? Right now, I don't know until we see exactly I have not seen the paperwork. So I don't know what's been proposed, but the staff will, if they've submitted, the staff will go through it. They'll apply it to what we currently have, and they'll make their recommendations. And then it's up to us to do our homework and make sure that we ask the right questions and listen to the residents and see if there's a path forward.
And something you guys kind of touched on today is there really is no rule book for what is the right amount of public benefit. I mean, when you look through TPI's list, it was a long list. They gave away a lot of property, got a parking lot, and got a whole bunch of things. There was a long list. I mean, it was really a long back and forth. And is that really the final? I mean, is that what will decide it? The public benefit? Let's say they're 4 stories and first 2 floors are parking. I mean, that's what their proposal is. But I know you haven't seen all the details or had a chance to look at it all. Will it really at that point come down to, okay, you've given us enough public benefit or you haven't?
Well, I think that's part of it. I mean,
Okay.
I think the residents will certainly weigh in on it. Where it's at. We got to look at densities. You got to look at intensities. You got to look at all of this stuff. You got to look at parking. Does it all fit within the FAR calculations or doesn't it? I mean, these are all things that the staff's going to look at, and we have no idea of knowing until we get to see what comes before us. But to me, it looks like just from the renderings that it's definitely not something that they can do just by right.
Right, for sure. Okay, anything else you want to touch on that? I don't want to leave it too soon. If you think there's anything else out there that the business owners or residents should know.
I just want to encourage anyone, whether you're a small landowner or you're a large developer, that don't take away from the meeting that the town wants to stay, what we were in the 1950s and 60s. That is not what I heard come out of that meeting. What I heard come out of that meeting is bring something forth that makes sense for you in the community, and it will get looked at. But don't come forth with, I should get everything under the sun and you got it. So I really encourage people to be part of it, because we know what we need. We know we need the tax revenue back. We know we need the tourists. We know we need our residents back in there. We know all of this stuff, but we had to make a stance on where we were with the plan, and that's what that was. There's still plenty of conversation to be had through the land development code, but sorry, always got to go. But just don't let that meeting get you down. Doesn't mean you can't come forth as the Neptune. You have said Neptune has moved forward regardless of what we said. So still keep moving.
All right. So shifting again, is the contract in place with the new permitting department, and what changes will the community see when that happens?
Well, I'm sorry, I was reading Greg's comment. So start again. I got to pay
That's all right.
attention and not read comments.
You have to do both.
I'm trying to. So there's a question I can answer. Right
That's
there.
why there's 2 of us. One of us
That's
can
right.
read it.
That's right.
I can pay attention.
Yeah,
So repeat that. Sorry, Kim.
Is the contract in place, the new permitting for the new permitting department? And if so, what changes will people see going forward?
It has not been signed yet. I think you heard the town manager say today that they expect to do that this week. The changes you're going to see, as you know, Steve Poposky went to be the town engineer. We've got a different building official coming in. We've got some inspectors coming in. Our goal is to bring everything in-house, make everything within the town hall campus is the best thing I can call it at this point. The trailer village that we have, but bring everything in-house so that when you have a question, it's not sending off an email to the other co-hosts and saying, why is this held up? We can actually walk across the parking lot and say, where is this at? Why is it, and try to streamline that process. We've been very upfront with them in all the talks over the last couple of weeks about that's the number one thing we have to address. We have to address the process. We can't have, one of it is go through the entire review process. My hope, and I'm certainly going to be pushing forward, is that when you submit, it goes through the entire process. Whatever you have, whether it's flood, whether it's whatever it is, whatever the rejections are, that it goes through once and it gets sent back so they have the opportunity to fix it all at once. The back and forth thing is very inefficient. It costs too much frustration for our residents. It costs too much time and money for our staff. So we've been very upfront with them that is a very, very important thing. So hopefully we'll get to see that change. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we're bringing things in-house. That's the biggest message you can get out of that.
So we haven't asked you this in a while, but how do you feel at this moment the permitting's going for residents?
Like I said before, when it's I can usually tell by my inbox.
Yeah.
If it's going bad, people have no problem telling it's going bad. People don't tell you when it's going good, but you don't get the bad emails. And I haven't gotten a bad email. Maybe you'll get one, say, can you look into this permit for me or something? And it's usually held up by something of a payment or a document's not sent in. But I have not heard any real negative things in a long time. So I have to say it's probably trending in the right direction. Doesn't mean there's not room for improvement. And that's what we're trying to do with the Jacobs Group is get it even better.
And if anyone ever has a question about a permit, you can ask. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't want the mayor's email inbox to be bogged down with that. But if you do it, remember to include your permit number. I mean, that's the easiest way for somebody to
Or
look
your
it up quickly.
address. Your permit.
Or your
Some
address.
people don't, some of the condos, they don't have their permit numbers. There's a lot of different permit numbers. So it's hard to just, sometimes there's 2 or 3 permits for a property. So it's almost easier to look it up by address, because then you can look at things that have been voided or waiting for payment, and it doesn't take that long to look it up. It's actually fairly simple to do. And that is, as I've said many times, that is probably the biggest thing we see is there's just something simple, whether it's a payment or a document wasn't submitted. But I keep pushing, and I think it's very important that when you sign with a contractor, if you're not going to be the point of contact, make sure you include your personal email with that application, because when we send out a rejection letter, if there's a rejection letter, or when a permit is issued, it only goes out to the email that we have on file. So if you give more ways of getting contact from the town on that application, we'll send it out to all the emails. But if we don't have the email, we can't send it to you. We can only send it to whoever sends it in. So if Kim, you put your application in for your house, but you only put your email, and then you're out of town for 3 weeks and Ed's going, "Where's my permit?" We
Right.
can't contact Ed because we don't have Ed's email.
And, well, she sucks at email anyway. So, I mean, that's the thing. Most people don't
Yeah.
check their email.
Oh, you're balanced. You're bad at math. She's bad at email.
Yeah.
So
And Yvonne,
It
the
works.
answer to your question is there already is a permit hotline. You're looking right at them right now. So that's usually how it goes.
I do spend that. I mean, I haven't spent as much time doing it lately, but I'll reach out to me. You can get a hold of me anyway, and I'll certainly help you, because, as I've said before, it's very difficult for people that never have gone through the permitting process in anywhere, not necessarily Fort Myers Beach. If you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't understand how to read it, it can be very confusing. It can be very difficult to understand, and it's just because that's just the system. And it's nice to know that somebody's willing to help, and that's all people want, is just someone to help. And if you go into town hall, people will help you. If you feel like you want to go in, ask them, "Hey, can you look this up for me?" They'll be more than happy to help you.
How's the response been on the letters that you've sent out over the last couple of weeks to businesses or residences on, getting their places in
Cleaned up.
order?
It's been mixed. I'd say we've had more people at least get back to the town and say, "We're applying for a permit. We just signed a thing with a contractor. We're just waiting for our insurance." So we're at least getting an updated database of these properties, where they're at in the process. Some have gone forward and applied for a demo permit already. Some have received demo permits already and are just waiting to get started. But unfortunately, we do have some people that have just not replied at all. So we'll send them out again to try to get their attention. But I'd say we've had more responses than non-responses. I
Good.
don't know the exact breakdown of the numbers for each one, but because the list keeps getting updated daily, pretty much. New letters go out almost every day.
Okay, well, there you go, Ron. The new letters are going out every day. Dan, do you know anything about the Wyndham? I mean, you hear that they might try to rebuild, they might try to sell. Everybody on that south end obviously cares a lot about the Wyndham and the Outrigger property because they all spent a lot of time there. Have you heard anything?
I have not. I've heard that they're close to maybe being under contract. I don't know who that's with, but that could be Coconut Telegraph. They did receive a letter. A letter went out on the 28th of September. We have not heard back from them yet. I looked up their permit today. They applied for a permit back in April, I believe it was. It's just sitting there. They paid their fire fine, or they paid their fire fees for the permit, but they haven't paid the permit fee for the town. So it's just sitting there waiting for permit. So that's another one of those.
When you say permit, you mean a demo permit?
There's a demo permit that's sitting there waiting for
Okay.
payment from April of this year. So not sure why that hasn't been finalized, but they did put in for a demo permit, just hasn't been issued because the payment hasn't been paid for.
Maybe they have a bad email on file.
I don't know, but they did receive a letter, and there is a pending demo permit out there. They just haven't finalized it.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's your update on some of the side streets? There's been a lot of pictures floating around with floods, and I know the town is working hard to try and get them fixed. They're just hard to keep up with them all.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting a lot of backfill stuff that comes in through the places that had duck bills but that don't have them now, and you know, in case anybody didn't notice, we've experienced this last month. There's been a lot of high tides. I
Yep.
just see it on the dock. I mean, there's been incredibly high tides this month, but we're working through it. You know, stormwater is not cheap. It's very, very expensive, and it takes a lot of money. It's one of our appropriation asks this month. I mean, you saw that the SRF fund out there is, you know, we're borrowing money at a low interest rate to try to complete these projects. It just, Ian put us back a good year. We already had tier 1 and 2 we were working on. You know, and now that we're constantly having to go and clean these drains out after Idalia and other storms where it just keeps filling up, it's just, we're not moving backwards, but we're not moving forwards as fast as we'd like because we're having to do repeat cleanups. But I can tell you, Frankie and the staff and Andy, they're on it. They know it's a problem. I think daily they go down and check on the side streets to see what they look like, especially after a rain event. And they're doing the best they can. I know that they've got bids out for some of these duck bills. So they're working on it.
Yep. I heard a little bit of a mention today. Any update on the Terry Prasad lawsuit with, I know you guys were trying to settle it, and it seems like it could, I mean, I don't know why it's taking this long. He just needs to sign it. I mean, what's left to negotiate? You're waiving the fines.
Well, I don't think
Not really waiving
we're
them.
waiving any fines, but
Not really waiving them, but he had I mean, the plan was, you know, over time he could,
Get his money
yeah,
back.
he could get his money back if he followed the rules. I mean, so it just seemed like it's still going on. Maybe you know more than I do.
no, yeah, I mean, it's public record. Everybody knows what the offer was that we put out there to them, and it was turned down. So now we're back to kind of square one. The biggest thing is that it's got to be in compliance, because even if you settle on something, if you're not in compliance for what you're settling on, the fines will just start again the next day. So what's the point unless you're going to come into a compliance? So I don't know what he's still not in compliance with. I've reached out to staff today and asked them about it. Haven't gotten a response yet as to what's still outstanding. I see the chairs, you know, obviously aren't being rented anymore. So trying to figure out what it is that's still out there that's not in compliance, so we can get some closure to this. I know he and his side want to be done with it. The town doesn't take any pride in this continuing on, but you can't just let people that aren't staying in compliance continue to not stay in compliance. It's just not how it works.
So I think the town also believes that parking lot is illegal, that he's selling spots to. Is that true, or is that a legal parking lot?
That's part of some of the code thing. I don't think that that's been resolved. I think that it's still technically, the argument I think it's been used like that forever. So it's still continuing to get used. And there's a lot of different legalities in this. I hate to try to give every single one because I don't know every single one off the top of my head, but I think that there's still some code compliance issues that are going on there, but I don't know that for sure until I get that report back from staff.
And so part of the he obviously owns property. Terry owns property in Times Square, and you know,
That's my question.
yeah, and how trying to get everybody on the same page there, and rebuild Times Square. You got that thing hanging over your head, not really hanging over your head, but it would be nice if it was resolved with the property owner. And I know you guys met last week. Can you kind of tell the community what's the latest with Times Square?
Yeah, so we had a meeting with all the landowners in Times Square, the majority of the landowners in Times Square, to just see if there was a way that we could get everybody on the same page about a concept or an idea that we could then work with the county on. Because there's three, you know, all of them, the town and the county, all have input on that area. And we all want to do what's in the best interest for everybody to get done as fast as they can. But the biggest thing in my eyes was to get all of them in a room and say, is this something that we could potentially live with? This is just an idea. It's just a concept. And to my surprise, everybody was on board. Everybody thought it was a good idea. And just kind of the gist of it is everybody knows it has to go up. So how do you do that? How do you make it cost effective, not get it too cluttered, not make it too out of the ordinary, you know, to try to get every single business to have an elevator shaft and stairs for ADA compliance in each one? That really cuts into your footprint. Is there a way to combine them through a boardwalk, an elevated board? Almost like if you look at a mall, if anybody's been to the Mall of America, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about, or any mall that's 3 stories high. When you're walking on the ground floor, you could see all the way up, but there might be something that goes across where you can cut from one side to the other, something like that. Just general idea of something like that could work, where you could get away with 2 elevator shafts, maybe one on each side of Times Square, and 2 sets of elevators. So you don't have to share. You don't have to have an elevator. Everybody could share an elevator, so you become compliant. Everybody could share the stairs. Potentially look at some restrooms that become public restrooms up there, that not every single business then has to have a restroom. So just ideas like that. Everybody seemed to like the ideas. That's the initial conversations that we had with the county about, we know we have to elevate it. How do we make it look nice? Keep the park that's there, Crescent Park, keep Lynn Hall Park. And so far, so the next steps is they're going to go back and they're going to kind of get together some renderings of what it could look like. Then we'll get together with them, and then we can have the county come in and we can all sit down and kind of say, here's kind of the concept. How can we get to it? How does the funding work? All that kind of stuff. But at least now I think a big hurdle was crossed where everybody got at least on the same page for a concept or an idea. And we'll see what the renderings kind of look like. And as soon as we get those, then we can go to the county, because then we'll have information. As I've said before, the county is very much data driven, which is a good thing. How much does an elevator shaft cost? Where is it going to have to be? Is it in our right of way? Is it in your right of way? Is it, all that kind of stuff. So the more information we can have when we sit down with them, I think the sooner we can get to something coming out of the ground there.
Who's going to do the renderings when you say they?
I think that they didn't specifically say who, but they're going to kind of get some kind of drawing together of.
No, but the group, the Times Square group business owners are going to get.
That's so there wouldn't be in this scenario, there wouldn't be a lot of change to the town's property as far. They would still say,
Right.
It obviously we cleaned up, do the infrastructure, that kind of stuff that we had already planned on doing. But how do we allow them to build their businesses back? There's talk about having a 5-foot area between each building where you could walk out. If you're on the second level, you can walk out and you can still see the sunset. So everything's not connected. It's spread out. So I think I think everybody was on the same page. I think what they come back with will be interesting to see. Is there a way to incorporate a boardwalk that goes down maybe in front of Crescent Park and extends down past Margarita? Is there things like that could be done? I don't know what the coastal construction line, if that's possible, but there's all kinds of little, you could go down a rabbit hole of all the little ideas that are thrown out there. But I think having some sort of conceptual thing of what they see in their mind and
Right.
How it can incorporate into the pier, into Lynn Hall, or into Crescent Park and into Lynn Hall Park. I think most people are visual. When they can see something and get an idea of a concept, then it starts sparking more things. And hopefully that's what will come out of that. But I think we got past the big hurdle of at least getting the nod from all of them. Like, yeah, we can live with this. That sounds like a good idea.
So back when back when we were at Pete's, everything was down. Is those restaurants, those businesses used to rent space back from the town, right? Where the tables were out on the ground floor. So that was a way that they could certainly get more people, how will that work going up? Like, do you own the space up, or can they?
It's just like any property owner. Your property line's your property line. You can build with what you can build within that, and then you can go up to what the height is. But underneath now is going to be open.
Out.
You can't go past the coastal construction line, but you can go up to whatever their height is. So, and that's what people have to understand. What they had before, I think by right, they can go to 30 feet above base flood elevation in Times Square. That's what they can do by right. So
that's pretty good.
It's going to be, those buildings are going to be 50 feet tall when they rebuild them. There's just unless they decide they don't want to build them that high. But by right, I think it's 30 feet above base flood elevation. And I think base flood elevation in there is like 19 feet. So the first floor is going to be roughly 16 feet if they're 3 feet above, sea level. So you're looking at 50 feet, similar to a new house that's built in Times Square that you're going to see built. So it was important to them, and I think it's important to everybody to try to keep as much open space as you can between each of those. Keep Times Square open, don't make it just a big concrete jungle. And I think everybody kind of liked that idea, and we'll see what it looks like and see if it makes sense. But that's kind of where we're at.
On now, in addition to trying to get the thing resolved with Terry, you got at least two pieces of property that are for sale. I think Brad's trying to sell his piece, and I don't know what's going on with the Dairy Queen piece over there. When you say everybody's on the same page, did Brad then decide that, okay, I'm not going to sell, I want to be part of this? Or I mean, what pieces of property for sale, how does that fit into what they're deciding?
Well, I can't speak for them, so I don't know how that plays in. Brad said in the meeting that, you know, I may want to build, I may not want to build, depending on what happens and what this looks like. I think, you know, at the very beginning, it was there, obviously there was a lot of built up aggression over the years. People have history with when the town incorporated, and then when they closed off Estero, and there was a big history lesson, if you will, that I had heard several times from John Lalo in the past
Yes.
about what happened there. And back to your question, Kim, that you were talking about, you know, yes, they had to rent space in Times Square. They didn't have to, but they had the option to rent space in Times Square because they didn't have the space inside like a Pete's Time Out. Well, when they build that area back, that whole footprint of what they had before is now, you can't have a kitchen there. So it's going to be seating for your guests. So you wouldn't even technically have to rent anything from the town, because now what you're going to have, and that was my point to them, is what you had out in Times Square, you're still going to have
Now
that
just
option.
going to be under.
Well, you're going to have twice as much or 3 times as much seating that you had before outside, because the first level is going to have to be, it's going to have to be open for the most part. It's not going to be a place where you can have kitchens and bathrooms and stuff like that, because you're in the velocity zone. So just inherently, you're going to get more space,
and they're going to need that. They're going to need that extra space to try and help them recoup some of the building costs, because they are going to. It is going to cost a lot to build in that.
Well, they were all very much.
Stairs are on the edges, or the elevators or the stairs are on the edges. How do they get food and servers down below?
Well, there's dumb waiters. There's things that they can do. I mean, they're still going to probably have some sort of stairs that they need to get down there, but at ADA, they're going to have something other than stairs. So they'll still, I would assume, they would still have a staircase, but a staircase takes up a lot less space than an elevator shaft does, or an elevator shaft and a staircase. So again, these are just ideas. I'm sure everyone's going to do something a little bit different on how they would do it, but it was important for them to make sure that that open air was still there on time. You know, so when you're in Times Square, it doesn't mean that they can't have temporary things, like they can still do temporary bars. I think, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think they can still do temporary things where they can do that just has to be removed at the end of the night. So they can still service their guests. It would just be the food then coming up and down. And they could do dumb waiters. There's a bunch of different things that they could do, but it can be done. They're just going to have more space now, quite honestly, because they're going to have, you know, 30 feet above base flood elevation, plus the 16 or 19 feet below base flood elevation that they can still use for their guests to sit there and enjoy. They can walk right to the beach.
Yeah, it's nice to see that a step was taken. At least, you know, everybody got together, which didn't seem to be happening up until that meeting last week. So that was nice.
Well, I certainly owed a good debt of gratitude to Anita. She was very instrumental. You know, she's got a lot of institutional knowledge here. She knows a lot of these people have owned this land for decades. And I reached out to her and asked if she could assist me in getting, because I don't have everybody's contact information, but she does. And she reached out to them and she organized it, and we were able to put it together. So thank you, Anita, for doing that, because I think that did give us a big monumental step forward in trying to get something done there.
So staying kind of around the Times Square area, do you know anything about what might happen to the Lynn Hall Park property when they knock the building down and they're going to put trailers in there for bathrooms? So they're not going to need all that space. Do you know if the county plans on adding more parking spaces or just leaving it like a little sand park that it was?
I'm not exactly sure what their plans are, but I know what their plans aren't. When we met with them, when Roger DeJarlais was still there, they made it very clear that they have no intention of wanting to put a parking garage there, that they want to keep that space open.
Yeah.
But I think they have said that they're not going to build back the bathrooms because they can't build them at grade level. So my guess is that they'll probably open that up a little bit. I don't know what they want to keep it a park is what they want to do. At least is what they've told us, but I don't know what their ultimate plans are. They've been very good about wanting to work with us. And what does the beach want? What does the beach need? So going back to that, having the landowners around there with the town of Fort Myers Beach on the same page, it makes it that much easier to go to them and say, here's what we think will work. Here's what we think the community will like. and then they can get behind us and say, okay, now what can
Yeah.
we do to improve our property?
So
And
they don't want to build up.
they can't. They won't. They're
They
not
won't.
going to build it back.
I don't think there's an interest for them to build
Nope.
up, but it
Not gonna
doesn't
do
mean
it.
that it's out of the run. I know that they saw that presentation for the pier, and maybe, you know, the pier is going to have to be up high. So how do you get down
I
from
don't
the
know
pier
how
and up
that's
from the
going to
pier?
work.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
still,
I did talk-
it's still early, but they told me specifically that it wasn't their intention to build a parking garage there.
Yeah, I've never heard that. And I did talk to them about the Bowditch bathrooms, which I will have an update in the newsletter tomorrow. So if anyone wants to know about those, you can read the newsletter tomorrow. Any new news on the fence that's around their park? I mean, it looks so nice now, but it's completely blocked off. Even on the beach
Well-
side, I noticed.
Crescent.
Well,
Yeah.
look at what happened this weekend at
Yep.
Red
Coconut.
Coconut. They have it fenced off. People rolled the fence back, and there must have been 30 cars parked out there this weekend.
I was shocked.
She just did a video and said they just keep rolling in.
I was like, folks, I mean, I'm not going to go policing anything, but I just was like, there's a sign right there that says no trespassing. And
Yeah.
and I thought if it was one, I was like, well, maybe somebody got permission. But as I sat there for a minute and everybody was like, boom, boom, I'm like, now this is going to be a hot mess.
Well, it looked to me like they rolled back the fence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where the entrance was, to me, I don't know that they did that, but when I went by,
Right.
that's what it looked like to me. Is that the
It
fence
was open
rolled
when I
back?
went by.
So it's
And it was right across from
Just-
LCSO's building. they have
well,
balls
you
to
know,
do that.
but to their defense, I mean, unless someone
Right.
calls unless you call and say, hey, these people are on my property, I need them gone.
Yeah.
They can't just go over and say, hey, get off private. I mean, they could probably do that and say, this is private property, but usually it takes a complaint to draw any action, because that's the process they have to go through. So, but yeah, I was surprised to see how many cars were out there, and it's not just there; it's other properties up and down the island that people are just. I would never just go to somebody's backyard and pull in their yard without permission. I don't know how people think it's a good idea, but
Nope.
that's what they did. So.
In the
started
Crescent
too, I
Park
mean-
situation, the beach side, like down by where it's on the other side, the fence is still up there, so people can't even walk. Well, they could if they wanted to, knock the fence down, but it's on the beach side too, and on the street side, they would actually have to drive up over the sidewalk and park there. I mean, I'm not saying they wouldn't do that because we've seen some crazy stuff on the beach, but at least on the beach side, it seems like that the people can't even walk on it. So. Whatever.
I'd be willing to bet if that fence was down within the first 2 days, there'd be someone parked up on that beach,
Yeah,
or at least
you're
try
right.
to park up on that beach. I mean, yes, the fence is not the prettiest thing in the world. Maybe there's something we can work with them to do a little more decorative to do the same thing, but it's there for a reason, because as well as I do, if you take that fence down, someone's gonna try to park there.
So
Well,
what's the
other thing too is
Right.
if the liability, somebody's parking there, they trip over something in the parking lot, it's like, now what? That really shouldn't be the property owner's responsibility, but how that works. I
Well,
mean,
that's one of my biggest fears is
yeah,
we've worked so hard. Everybody has worked so hard to try to improve and make big steps day by day, and all it takes is one accident or one thing, and then that becomes a news story, and everything you've worked hard for is now gone. Whether you're the property owner who's tried to do the best thing they can do, and you got somebody that just decides it's up to them, that they're going to roll your fence back and drive on your property. I feel for the property owner, because you can't have someone standing there 24 hours a day to
Yeah.
secure your property. But
well, you can't, but you might want to on the weekends.
or charge them for
because,
parking.
I mean, yeah, or
Charge them $50 for parking.
open it up.
Well,
So, Dan, what do you think the long-term resolution might be for Crescent Park? I mean, I totally get it blocking off the parking, but it was a park at some point where people could actually walk into. How do you fix that?
Well, in talking to the county, they said, what would Fort Myers Beach like to see there in Crescent Park? Would you like to see the volleyball courts back? Would you like to see what was there before? Would you like a band shell there to have concerts? I mean, they're asking what we would like to see. So maybe put it out there. I'm just one person. We're just 5 council members. We're just, 70 staff members. We can only think of so much to give ideas for, but what would the public like to see out there? They're the ones that they're asking for the input on. So we'll want to keep it just plain sand. I mean, what is it that makes sense there that can tie into Times Square? We know what Lynn Hall Park is. It's parking garage, parking area. But what can Crescent? There's all kinds of opportunities there. Just what makes sense. But I know it's important to the county to keep, and important to the town to keep it a park, to not develop it. But doesn't mean you can't have some things there that can bring a lot of community benefit there.
You know, like picnic tables and barbecues, right?
Mhm. Pickleball court.
Oh my God, it would be too crowded. You'd need parking if there was pickleball court there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If you're
Yeah, how do you?
when you mentioned the band shell, so I can't even remember how long ago it was there was going to be something in Times
Yeah.
Square.
Yeah.
So now that's not going to.
It's not off the table, but I mean,
Okay.
obviously you would need both. You know.
Plus, I mean, I don't know.
Sense.
It's going
Why
to be.
take it away from Bayside Park right now, man? That place is hopping with the activity
Sure.
down there. So yeah. So
No, I'm not saying there should be. I was just ideas that get
Yeah.
thrown out there. What makes sense? What do people want to see out there? Maybe it's one of the poll questions you can put out there.
How are you feeling about the financial stability of the town right now? Is the town in good financial shape?
Well, as good can be. I mean, Joe's doing a great job of making sure that there's funding there. He's doing the right things. I think, as you saw in the budget hearings, he's applying money from areas that make sense and trying to not use as much of the borrowed money as possible. It's inevitable that we're going to have to do it. There's no way to get through it without using borrowed money, but I think we're doing okay. You've got to be careful on what you apply money to, and still working to get stuff appropriated or approved through FEMA, obligated, so that we can start doing some of these projects. We get an update every month. I think total assistance we've received to date is $33,493.94, and that's through public assistance, FEMA public assistance. The $10 million we got from FDP for the stormwater, and then the 11.9 we got as the bridge loan from the state.
And Representative Botan is not going to hold it against you that we're trying to kill his bill, is he? I mean, he's he holds the strings up there for the money. Hopefully, he's not going to, when his bill dies, he's not going to be angry.
I spoke with Representative Botana this morning before our meeting and let him know. That what was probably going to be happening. I assumed that somebody would bring up, the fire district thing, and he assured me that whatever we decide is not gonna. He's gonna move forward with what he moves forward with, and we're gonna move forward what we move forward with. But it's two separate. It's two separate things.
Good. And when I was talking to Senator Martin today, I can't say these guys' names like we're buddies.
Yeah, because you're not.
It's disrespectful. Yeah, he did say that back when he was growing up, it was a lot more rural than it is now, and there was probably a need. And I think somebody else told me, I think it was Matt Caldwell told me that Frank Mann was kind of the idea behind all these different fire districts, but it's more populated now, and maybe all 17 need to be looked at rather than just one, which kind of makes sense. I mean, that would seem like a smart study. Do you need 17, or can you figure out something else?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of outside of our realm of jurisdiction, but I think that leads back to what we talked about. There's, more data is needed. If it makes sense, it makes sense. And if you've got the data to show it through studies or whatever is required to get it done, you heard Chief Worth say it today. If it makes sense, it makes sense. Then nobody's going to argue if it makes sense, as long as the proof is there that this is why it makes sense. And one way or another, I'm sure we'll get to that. We'll get to that point.
Yeah. And Ron Fleming was at the meeting today. You didn't see it. He called it a hostile takeover.
He always has a choice of words.
Yeah.
And, he speaks his mind.
Yeah.
And
lastly, on the fire department, the land swap between the fire department and the town is off the table.
It's off the table.
And that was talked to Chief Martin today. He said it was because they couldn't figure out. Chief Worth today. and they couldn't figure out how to make the new fire building work down by Del Mar, which would have been their perfect location. So they really, I'm simplifying it, but they're going to go back to the Tops property and start the process to get a building there.
Yeah, that's my understanding. There's some things obviously have changed, or you got to work through over the last year. Once you kind of get your house in order, you figure some things out. As I said in the meeting today, we would have still liked to do that swap, but we certainly understand, and we don't want to get in the way of public safety. And if this is the fastest route to getting back the services that we need for the community, so be it. We still have our property. It's not the end of the world. It would have been nice if we could have had the adjacent property, but again, we're not going to stand in the way of we're not going to stand in the way of progress for them. And I know that they certainly respect that, and we respect the working relationship we have with them. It's been great since the storm. So we're not willing to jeopardize anything over that. We all got to work together and get through this together. So the sooner they can get moving, good for them. We've got our own issues with trying to get town hall started. So we certainly understand they're wanting to get this moving forward.
So you still have the town hall property. You'll still maintain where the town hall used to be.
Yeah, we still have that, and then the piece of property that was purchased back behind it that goes behind Chapel by the Sea. We still have those pieces of property. They'll get once we're off the property, they'll start doing what they need to do to move forward with their design and their build. But essentially nothing has changed from.
Oh, Dan, there really hasn't even been an official decision by the council as to where the future town hall would be. I know there's been discussions about trying to keep it in the new Bay Oaks building, but it really hasn't been an official decision yet. So you maybe could build a new town hall on the same property, right? I mean, or you can sell it.
It's certainly possible. We're trying to figure out what's the most cost-effective way to do it. Does it make sense to put it on top of the Bay Oaks building and have one complex, or does it make sense to have its own building on our property over there? You're looking at the size. We're trying to figure out the size. I know that the staff is narrowed down. I think the one or two firms that can engineer what we want to do there. Our goal is to, and again, I can't speak for the fellow counselors, but I think that our goal there is to not only just make it a town hall, but also a place where we can have, when it's not a Hurricane Ian type storm, we have a place that we can go use as an emergency operation area for the fire district to use potentially too, not knowing what they're going to do with theirs. But for me, one of the most important things is to design it so that it can be a safe haven for our residents. Right. So many of our residents couldn't get off the island in time, or they didn't have the means to leave the island, and they stayed in their home simply because they had no other option. If we can provide an area that can work as a safe haven for people on the island that they can go to and be as safe as possible. 16 and a half feet, I think, is the height we're looking at trying to build there, if not even more. Make it a nice hardened structure for people that have no other options to be able to go to
as a shelter,
that can't get to a shelter off island, that don't have transportation, that they can get there. You can walk there, you can take a bike, people can give you a ride, whatever it is. But that I think is the ultimate goal, is to make it not a three-phase, but a three-use kind of building. It's a town hall, but it can also be a place for people to go and get out of harm's way.
So Dan, just us shooting the breeze here, you and us and our 9 listeners. Just take a stab at not a renovation, not a renovation that's going on the island. When do you think? How many years do you think it would be for something brand new to open up on Fort Myers Beach? How long is that going to take?
I think that'll determine a lot on if we have to start from ground zero, if we have to start designing from scratch. I mean, design can take up to a year. By the time you go through, and you saw how long the building for Bay Oaks took. By the time it gets through the committee, and then it gets to the LPA, and then it gets to the town council, just to get to a 90% per design phase was a year or more. So if let's say we're going to use the current town hall property and design from there, that would require a whole new build. If you look at something that we already have designed and you can make some tweaks and make it work, that can save almost a year. You could be talking 2 years to 3 years, depending on, or even longer. But those decisions are going to have to be made, but we're still waiting on stuff, FEMA to tell us how much money. It all comes down to money too, at the end of the day. where we can get the funding to build it. We're certainly going to be asking for help from the state again this year. We have a
hold
little
on.
better idea.
But Dan, I don't mean a town building. I mean, like you heard, every once in a while you hear the Whales trying to get in his situation, and then maybe the Shuckers guys were trying to do something, and we know that Nervous Nellies is probably going to open at the end of the year. I mean, something like that. Something. Do you feel like are you getting a feel for a new business that's going to open? Oh yeah, that's going to be next.
Other than the ones that you've talked about, I mean, Sandy Bottoms, I think the old Tuckaway, they're sounds like they're moving forward with things. One of the concerns that has been brought up to me several times, and it's something that we're going to have to address, I think, soon, is people are concerned that because we have so many trailers, and when I say trailers, I mean people operating out of a business trailer.
Yeah.
There's really no deadline as to when that has, you have to start showing progress at some point. When is that going to be? There's going to have to be a hard discussion, I think, of when is that deadline? When is it? You have to start something. You can't be in a trailer forever.
Yeah.
You just can't. So I think we're gonna have to have those talks sooner than later here, so that we can at least give people enough notice that here's going to be the deadline, and it's going to be determined too by Senate Bill 250. That has a lot to do with it, but what they do with that this year, whether they extend it, whatever they do with it, we aren't sure yet. But
so you're talking about businesses like the Goods, because he's in a trailer. Although when I talked to him last, he made it sound like he's really humping it to try and get open or get his building knocked down and rebuilt. I mean, so you're talking about businesses like that are actually. I don't mean to single him out, but that's an example of the building, right? And Tuna Skin looks like they're coming along nice. We're going to have Ben on the show in a few weeks. I mean, every time I drive by that looks.
Bill or Ben?
Ben.
Okay.
Ben. And Duval.
No, yeah, they're doing a great job. That looks fantastic what they're doing there.
Yeah. So did we miss anything that you want to make sure our 9 folks know about?
Yeah, I was watching the meeting. Director Guthrie made a presentation at the House Select Committee on the Hurricane Resilience and Recovery. He made a statement that state-provided travel trailers must be out by January 31st. It's a federal requirement. It's not a state requirement. So it has to be 6 months from the time they go in. And his explanation was August, I think 31st is the last person that they put in a trailer. So January 31st is that deadline that's coming up for the end of that program. He also did state that we have reached the threshold for the 90-10 versus the 75-25 match from FEMA. Basically what that is, 90% of the funds are covered from FEMA. The other 10% are split between state and local, as opposed to 75-25, where it's 75% and then local would be 12.5%. It's now going to hopefully waiting for a decision, but we've met the threshold and the paperwork has been put in for that.
Wait, for what? Is that for debris cleanup? Is that what that was?
For everything storm related. It's the FEMA split. I don't know if that's what they exactly call it, but normally it's a 75-25. The federal government picks up 75%, and the state and local municipalities pick up the other 25 or split the other 25%. It sounds like we've met the threshold for that 90%.
Okay. FEMA
10% split. So that's a huge thing, especially for us. Now we'll have to work through other ways of trying to get that other 5% taken care of, just like everybody else is going to have to do. So hopefully we get some good information on that.
Back to the travel trailers thing. How many people on the beach need to give their trailer back?
I don't know that we have any through the state program that are still on the island.
Oh, okay.
There might be some that are in the federal program. They look exactly the same, but the state's program is different than the federal. But the process was the same to go through. I don't believe we have anybody in a state trailer on the island anymore. In talking with FEMA, I think most of ours are either moved on to somewhere else or been put into long-term solutions. But I think there's maybe 1 or 2 left.
So what happens if you don't give it back? They come and repo it or something? I mean,
I don't know that's a good question. Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know that they're gonna. I don't know if they just hook up to it with the truck and start pulling it away. If you're in,
I'm still in.
Probably not. But I don't know. It's hard to say.
Oh,
But
All
it
right, is that
sounded like they were very upfront with
Okay,
the people.
people.
It's not like
Gotcha.
they're going to just show up on the 30th and say, "Hey, you got to go." So.
Is that it, boss? You got anything else?
No, I think that's a good majority of it for now. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some other things that we didn't cover, but if
That
they
hour
pop
flew
up,
by. Hour flew by today. So what's the next band going to be? You have any ideas yet? I mean, that
I have no. I hope we can get bigger. You know, as word gets out, people. I mean, it's a great place to play. I think if I was a musician, I think it would be.
Yeah.
You got the water, you got the breeze, you got the nice view. I mean, it's certainly not a horrible place. So hopefully we can start attracting some bigger, better names and that want to come and play, and we could just keep growing it because it's really a fun place to watch. And then once Nervous Nellies opens, it's going to be even better. And I mean, it's a cool place to see a concert, especially as nice as it was last night.
Right. Yeah, and it's only going to be nicer now. And I unfollowed Old Dominion because of what they did to the beach. So I don't know if you still follow them, but I recommend you unfollow them.
I'm always going to follow them. They're a great band, and you know
You're better.
In case you haven't noticed, they're kind of on the up and coming. They're skyrocketing pretty fast. So
come on.
They we were hoping we were hoping we could get them down here, but doesn't mean that you know, logistically, I think seeing their schedule was going to be very difficult for them to do. But you know, kudos to your, you know, at 3 o'clock in the morning when I can't sleep, I had the idea of sending him a message, and then I got Ed involved. I said, Ed, let's get this out there.
Dude, 95% of those freaking responses were Fort Myers Beach. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy.
So it was great. I think I mean, I haven't heard from them, but I got to believe they got the message that we would love to have them here.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, Dan, I don't know if you know Rose over at, I've already forgotten the name of the Oconee Beach Club, I think is the one that her and her husband own. Man, her garden that she takes care of out there, she should be in charge of all the gardening on Fort Myers Beach. She does an outstanding job, and the community loved her, and we raised some money for her over the weekend that we're going to drop off to keep her.
How much did you raise? Are you going to spill the beans, or are you going to wait?
It was $3,000. So we're going to get her $3,000 gift cards to the different places for her to keep it going. And man,
she has no idea it's coming.
No, well, hopefully she doesn't watch the show, but I'm sure to leak out.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard you say, I hope they don't watch the show. That's got to be bad for business, isn't it?
It hasn't hurt us yet, so you never know. All right, man. Appreciate your time.
All right, guys.
Thanks a lot. Mayor Dan Allers, everybody. Another episode in the can, as they say in the broadcasting world. I don't know if you knew about that. It's now in the can. So yeah, that'll.
You don't give me an opportunity. You tell me, I ask these questions, and then you roll right over it.
What? You asked half the questions.
Don't.
Did you want to ask him something else?
It's too late now.
Save it for next week. So before we go, we do want to tell you about Alex King, another sponsor. Oh, we have 120 registrations already. We're on pace for the New Year's Eve 5K. We're on pace to have more than we had for the Mother's Day race.
Really?
Yeah. So that's going to be nice. We had 465 registrations for that race. So
might have to do it. I say that every time.
And all the money that we're raising is going to be donated to the Fort Myers Beach Women's Club to help them with their rebuild. So if we keep up this pace, it's going to be great. So the details are always in the newsletter. The details are always on our website. And John says, you went down Flamingo yesterday, I guess.
Yes, the one side. I didn't go down the Gulf side, the little bit, but yeah. I went down there. I've got to finish it up, but I've got to. I was telling people that once I get this other middle section, I'm really going to look at. It's hard to gauge how long different sections are going to take, and so now that I've been doing it for a while, I'm getting more familiar with how long it takes and what these other streets are. So,
and I can tell you on Saturday, people love to see the updates on the condo buildings. When I came down from Bowditch to the right side, when you go by all those condo buildings, you can see some are being worked on, others haven't been touched, just like everything else on the island. So next week, I think I'm just going to walk the south end and do the same kind of thing on Estero Boulevard and see how things are coming along. Maybe go around the beach side. Because people, she says you were going 110 miles an hour. Wow, I didn't know you could ride that fast. Holy smokes.
Sometimes I can see the comments, but it's like,
you probably shouldn't do that. Did you have a helmet on?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And somebody was saying, "Oh, you're going so fast." And I remember I was trying to pace my speech so that I could get some air in. And
Nice.
so I wasn't puffing and
Because you were
puffing,
trying to get exercise in too.
just because I feel like I'm going slow and it's like, oh, people are going to get bored. So
I always say that all the time. I said, if you guys are getting bored, just let me know and I'll turn it off.
see. So
Right. You can't see the comments. I did not lose my place. Alex King is currentcoastalrealty.com is where you can check out what Alex is up to and his team. You can email Alex at currentcoastalrealty.com or call him on his cell phone. He's sitting out in his car right now, waiting for you to call his cell phone at 239-747-7446. He is your go-to expert on Fort Myers Beach, and we love Alex King. Thanks so much for supporting the show, Alex, and thank you all for tuning in.
yes, and I want to thank Alex for not running me over he was coming down the street when I was doing my bike ride a couple of weeks ago.
Beep at you?
No, but I'm trying to make eye contact because
I didn't know it was
only
him.
well, I didn't know till after he stopped. He was so kind
I
to
see.
stop way far back, but I'm using one brake, so I'm not really coming to a quick halt.
Gotcha. One break. How about we take the bike to the bike store and get it fixed and tuned up?
It's because I have one hand.
Oh, I see. All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you Saturday for our next edition of the award-winning Dinky podcast from Wahoo Willie's at 11 o'clock. We have a great show lined up. Don't forget the newsletter. It's 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Have a great night. Bye-bye.